Welcome to Homeschooling Down South. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Kat. We're two Southern homeschooling mamas sharing real talk, resources, and inspiration for life and learning in the Southeast.
Each week, we'll chat with inspiring voices in the homeschool community, highlight must-see nature spots and field trip gems, and share resources from across the region.
Whether you're new to homeschooling or a seasoned pro, pull up a chair and join us as we celebrate the joy, freedom, and community of homeschooling down south.
Welcome back to both you, the listener, but also to you, Kat.
Yes, I'm back.
Back from your camping trip, but it was not just any old camping trip.
No.
And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yes, this is a nature episode where we're going to talk about the adventures that you can have in nature in the Southeast. And I'm so excited. We just got back from Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I am covered in bug bites. I have dark circles under my eyes from sleep or lack
I
thereof.
would say deprivation.
My feet have some cuts on them. And you know what? It's all worth it.
It's all worth it.
It's all worth it.
Okay, so give the listeners know we're in North Georgia. Give them some context as far as like where we are in relation to the Great Smokies.
Yes. So Great Smoky Mountains National Park is huge. I don't know off the top of my head how many acres it is, but it's going to span over the border of Tennessee and North Carolina. So depending on where you are in the Southeast, it's going to enter the park at one of those different points is going to be a different distance for you. For us, coming from, we're just south of Chattanooga, about 45 minutes south of Chattanooga. And for us, it was a 3-hour drive to the entrance that we went through, which is right by Gatlinburg, Tennessee. So if you're, in the Carolinas, the North Carolina side of the park is probably going to be a little closer for you, just depending on where you are. But 3 hours is not a bad drive.
No, that's not bad at all.
At all.
And when I said give the listeners, I meant me because I am geographically challenged. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. The nice thing about the drive for us from here, we just stayed on I-75 the whole time.
That's nice.
And we go right through Chattanooga and right through Knoxville. So good places to stop and grab a bite or use the restroom before you get to the rustic mountains, which was interesting. So we had never been there before. This was our first time. It's been a dream of mine for a very, very long time. I didn't know that Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg are so close to the national park. So if you are thinking, I am not a camper, but I would love to experience the Smoky Mountains, even Knoxville. Knoxville was only an hour away. So it would be easy to stay somewhere nearby and not camp in the park. And we'll get into some of the details, but it's a really accessible national park, and that is seen by the fact that it is the most visited national park in the country.
Wow.
12 million plus visitors per year.
Wow.
Yes.
That's amazing.
And it's also I believe has the highest number of people from other countries coming to check out a national park.
Interesting.
I don't know if that's still true, but it was certainly true on a documentary I watched that was like, because I watched a ton of documentaries about the Great Smoky Mountains.
You would.
Before we went. And one that was made in like somewhere around 2010 said that it has the highest number of people coming from other countries to visit a national park.
I wonder why.
I think, well, the number of visitors, I think it's because it's so accessible.
Okay.
So, we're population dense on the eastern seaboard.
Sure.
So if you live anywhere in the Southeast, the East, even like parts of the Midwest, it is one of the most accessible parks for you. And like I said, lots of national parks don't have anything nearby really to stay at. But there's so much that's grown up around the national park. Sure. It's really easy to stay in a hotel or an Airbnb and go experience the park. You don't have to camp in it, which is not necessarily true of some of the more rural national parks. I think the other reason is it's a really fascinating place. It has, just salamanders. It has 31 species of salamanders, 70 species of mammals, more than 10,000 species of insects.
Oh, that's the draw right there. That's why the people are coming.
All the bugs. There have been 1,000 species that had never been found before in the park.
Okay.
So it's just really interesting ecosystem. And it's also just gorgeous.
Sure.
The mountain views.
So can you talk about camping, are we solely tent camping or do they have like cabins or yurts or can you bring your RV?
So They don't you can bring your RV, but it's pretty rustic camping. Even for we're campers. We love camping. My husband and I both camped separately before we met. We were campers, and then we've been camping together a lot. We have not been camping a lot since our son was born. We used to camp like this all the time, and it was a whole new thing with a kid. So he went on his first camping trip last fall, and we went to a KOA, which I had been kind of snotty about in the past. I was a little bit of a camping snob, and I thought KOAs, but if you have a kid, boy, howdy, are KOAs phenomenal because they have things like pools and jumping pillows and playgrounds. And I thought that there's different categories of KOAs. And if you pay attention to the categories, then you're going to end up in a really good experience because I thought, well, it's just like kind of commercially. But actually, the KOA we stayed at had a beautiful nature trail, one of the best nature trails I've ever been on.
That's awesome.
And it was really cool. So, but we're not here to talk
Future
about that.
episode.
Future episode. But what we are here to talk about is camping in the Great Smokies, which is very rustic. And so this was the most rustic my son had ever camped. And it was the most rustic my husband and I had camped in probably about 15 years. Because what we had forgotten, we've camped in bear country a lot. Where we lived in Northern California was bear country. We hadn't camped in bear country since we moved to Georgia. And we forgot how much work it is because you're just constantly having to think about, have I left us exposed to a bear coming into our campsite? So that's one layer of the challenge of camping in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. The other layer is if you are in an RV, which is great for the bear piece because then everything is locked up inside your RV. So you don't have to think about, we were tent camping. So we had to think about everything getting locked up every time we were not going to be sitting outside at our campsite. Anytime we're sleeping in the tent, anytime we leave the campsite, everything has to get locked up. But the RVs, even the RV campers are in a more rustic kind of experience there than they might be somewhere else because there's no hookups.
Oh. Oh.
So your RV camping, your RV is a tent
Right.
in that situation. So there's just campgrounds. There are a couple of unique things in Great Smoky Mountains. There's an institute there, and they have like dormitory style if you participate in one of their programs. But in general, if you're sleeping inside the park, you're sleeping in a tent or an RV or your hammock. Some people like to hammock camp. But if you're looking for a cabin, there's an abundance of them right outside the park. So it's worth it even if you're listening to this episode and you're thinking, wow, the nature part of that sounds great, but I would like to sleep in a bed at night.
Right.
That's
I would like
totally
to
accessible.
not have to worry about securing things from bears.
Here's what I would do differently if we were going to camp there again. And we probably will camp there again because we'll get to why we were camping in the specific campground that we were in. We'll get to that. But if I were going to camp in that campground again or any campground in the Smoky Mountains, I wouldn't think about it as camping the way that my family camps.
Okay.
We when we go camping, that's the thing. That's the experience. That's what we're there to do. We're there to camp, which means we like have some special camp meals that we make on our camp stove.
Sure.
And I mean, I'm sitting right next to my camp kitchen right now because we haven't put it away. We, we think about the fire, like being around the fire at night. We think about just being in our campsite and at the campground and really experiencing all of those things. So, but that's not what we were there to do.
Right.
We were there to have a very special wildlife encounter.
Right.
And so what I would do in the future is I would just pack everybody peanut butter. I would make them at home.
Yeah.
I'd make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for every lunch. I'd make, ham and cheese sandwiches for every dinner. I'd make egg and cheese sandwiches for every breakfast. I would make them all at home. I'd pack them up nice and tight, small cooler. And we wouldn't do it because we made pancakes one morning. We wouldn't do that next time in bear country.
Right.
Just because that's not what we were there to do. And it was just a lot because it's anything that your food touches has to get packed up. So our camp stove had to get packed up every time. Pan that we used. We made hot dogs one night. We made pancakes in the morning. We brought sandwich stuff. Actually, we brought bread from Scratch Made Simple, which is a whole other topic that I would love to talk about in this episode. Or actually, I'll just talk about it now. If you are going camping and you live near us, you should ask Kayla to make you all of your baked goods because it really did simplify. So we brought Kayla's bread with us and made all of our sandwiches there. But again, I would have made the sandwiches ahead of time because just pulling everything out. And so every time you are like, we had small trash bags. After every meal, we had to take our trash to the bear dumpster. Whereas when we camp other places, we just have one garbage bag for the whole
Right.
camping trip.
You don't have to think so hard about
It
it.
was a lot. And just with our 5-year-old, there were a lot of logistics that he had to just sit around and wait for.
Yeah.
He didn't want to wash the dishes, but we have to
Yeah.
wash the dishes right now because we don't want to draw a bear. Because the big thing about the bears, it's not so much that a bear is going to come and hurt you. That's actually a pretty low risk. It's that the bears come in, they get a taste of human food, and then they start to come back wanting more and more. And that's when they start to become aggressive.
Right.
And then the park is in a precarious position because the national park wants to preserve wildlife, but they can't do that if the wildlife is getting aggressive with the people there. So it's really about protecting the bears more than anything else. And that was a good lesson for my son. Like it was good to teach him something about animals and our interactions with them. It gave us an opportunity as homeschoolers to have a lesson about something out here in nature in the woods. But at the same time, it just was a lot of work, and I don't need to teach that lesson again. We taught it. Check.
Well, and you can camp other places where you're not there. Like, we should just probably tell the people why you were there.
Yes. So we were there specifically to see the synchronous fireflies in Elkmont, which if you live in the Southeast, which you probably do if you're listening to us, you might have some fireflies in your yard. And you might think, well, why would I need to go have this experience in the Smoky Mountains? Why do I need to drive 3 hours? The thing that is really special about these fireflies is they are one of two populations in the United States that blink at the same time. So when it's so cool. And you think about sitting on your porch and you watch the fireflies and they kind of like float
Twinkle,
around and they
yeah.
twinkle. And that's really pretty. I love that. I love that. I grew up in Northern California, but I spent my summers coming to visit my grandparents in and around Atlanta. And one of my favorite memories is watching the fireflies in their yard. I mean, it just was so special. It's something I didn't experience somewhere else. And I just have loved fireflies ever since I was a kid. Moving to Georgia in 2013, I was so excited about the fireflies. They've just continued to just be in my heart. And then when I learned about the synchronous fireflies shortly after my son was born. My son was born in late March 2020, and so I spent a lot of time looking stuff up
Yep.
that we might get to go do someday in the future, but not today. And we lived in South Carolina at the time, and I found out that one of these populations of synchronous fireflies is in Congaree National Park, which is in South Carolina.
Okay.
So that's the one I kind of imagined I would go to because I thought we were going to continue living in South Carolina. But I also learned at that time that there was another population of them in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And these are the only two populations where they will have this like special pattern
That's so
of
cool.
flashing that no other fireflies do. And what I was amazed by, I knew they were going to flash at the same time and be synchronous and flash in unison. I didn't know that there was going to be so many other differences from the fireflies in my own front yard. Their light color was ours are sort of like a yellowish green, maybe like a tint of amber-ish in there. These were much more of a whiter, brighter, almost like bluish.
Whoa.
And our
That's so
fireflies,
cool.
I would never have described our fireflies this way a week ago, but having just gotten back from this, our fireflies are a little lazier. Like they
Oh.
float and they just kind of flash and then stop and then they float and they do it again.
Yeah.
These,
It's more staccato.
it's more staccato and it's 5 flashes, flash, 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 and then a long pause where it's just pitch black.
Whoa, that is so cool.
But they all flash at the same time. And it's not like all of them in the entire forest. It's kind of a wave because like they'll see one start and so then they all join in. So if you're like watching, they kind of start, maybe on your left and wave over to your right.
Wow.
It was really cool. So that's why we were there, and we can go into the details of. I mean, I could tell you about just like the way our weekend flowed if that.
So, okay, but first, your journey to getting this reservation is a story in its own because I think, it's important for people to know, like, this books up super fast.
Yes. So there are two ways to see the fireflies. The first is that you can enter a lottery and get a ticket in to the Elkmont Historic District. I don't know how many tickets they have each night, but just looking at the parking when we were there, it's probably less than 100.
So that's people getting in, not camping, just being
Correct.
able to walk into the park and view this.
Yes. And during the Firefly Festival, which is what they call it, which is a 10-day festival that usually spans somewhere around the last week of May to the first week of June, they will actually shuttle you in. So you park in a kind of more convenient place, they shuttle you in, and this is an opportunity where you wouldn't have to camp.
Right.
In fact, you would probably be better off not camping.
Right.
So each spring, some of the scientists there in Smoky Mountains National Park, they go and they figure out what they think this 2-week, because this is only a 2-week event
Yeah.
for the synchronous fireflies. Other fireflies in the park flash throughout the summer,
Sure.
but these synchronous ones, these really special ones, only happen in this 2-week window every year.
That's so wild.
So the scientists predict when they think that 2-week window is going to be, and then the park sets a 10-day firefly festival within that 2-week period.
Okay.
And that's where you would have to enter the lottery. And here's the thing that makes all of that kind of complicated is they don't release the dates of the Firefly Festival until like late April.
Oh man, that's a quick turnaround.
Yes, and then the Firefly Festival is late May, early June. So that's when you enter the lottery. That's not even when you find out if you got a ticket. So there has to be a lot of flexibility with your travel plans. And I think you have to probably, I don't know how hard it is to find lodging that close,
Sure.
but it is the Smoky Mountains.
Yeah.
And they are a popular place to travel. And
Yeah.
this is right after school gets out. So I think you would have to be very flexible
Yeah.
to take that route. And you also just might not ever get, it's
Yeah.
a lottery.
Yeah, and so, like, if you win the lottery or whatever, is it you can come anytime in those 10 days or, "Hi, you've won Monday's lottery, you can come on Monday."
I believe you win a specific date.
Man, because then what if they don't happen, right? Is that a possibility that the fireflies wouldn't come out?
Well, I think they're so good at this point of predicting that 2-week period,
That you're
and it's
pretty
a
much
10-day
guaranteed.
festival.
Sure.
So they kind of try to put that in the middle of when
Yeah.
that 2-week period is going to be to have some buffer, but the weather could be a factor. And when I get into
As you found out.
as we found out. So when I get into the details of our experience, you'll hear how the weather can be a factor. So that, it's nature. And
Okay.
this is what I kept saying to my son the whole time. It's nature. We can't control it. We exist with it.
Yeah.
And we go with the flow. And we really did that. It was kind of special to see how well he did that. So that's one way
Okay.
to see the fireflies, the synchronous fireflies. The second way is you camp in Elkmont Campground. And then there's a trail into the area where the fireflies are.
Okay.
So they open up reservations for the campground in January, February,
Okay.
early in the year. And they're gone in seconds.
Yeah, you gotta be on that.
You have to be on it. And the best spots are gone, I mean, it's like anything where it's ticketed and
Sure.
you're like, I did this within the first 30 seconds. How did someone beat me? But they
Listen,
did.
when I had the opportunity to get my photo taken with Andrew Lincoln, because yes, I am a Walking Dead fan, you best believe I had my computer and my phone in my hand, clicking refresh, 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 trying to
Right.
get that ticket.
It's the same kind of thing. Any ticketed event you've gone to where you've tried and people have beaten you and you just don't even know how they did. It's
Yeah.
that same sort of anticipation. But think about this. They haven't predicted yet the 2 weeks back then when you're booking the campgrounds
Right.
or campsites. So here's what you do. You sign up for cancellation notifications.
That's smart.
This is what we did. And I learned about this from a friend, another homeschool family. They live about half an hour from us. And she did this last year. And then I saw her right after she got back and she told me all about it. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do next year. So I signed up for campsite cancellation notifications. And as you get closer and closer and closer, people start canceling.
Sure.
Whether life happens, but then also, especially when they announce. So if somebody had booked for outside that 10-day Firefly Festival or even outside that 2-week window, they're going to cancel
Right.
because the whole reason was to go see the fireflies. So I ended up starting to get cancellation notifications probably in April, and I still wasn't fast enough. I kept on
Wild.
not getting it, not getting it, not getting it. Finally, one came up for this past weekend, which was the 6th and the 7th of June, and I don't know how it but it I mean,
It's
I think it was a miracle of
yeah.
God, but I got it, and I booked it, and a few maybe if it's just a few days later is when they announced when the festival was going to be.
Oh,
So
I
I
don't think
still
I realized that you booked it without knowing.
Yes, I still didn't even know if we were gonna be in there in the window,
Whoa.
but I figured,
How wild.
get the campsite,
Sure, because then you can cancel if it's outside the window.
right? Or if it's really close to the window, you keep it. So they announced the dates of the Firefly Festival. It ended on June 5th. Our reservations were for the 6th and the 7th. So the odds were that they were still going to be flashing, but we didn't know.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
apparently, once they stop, they just stop. So there was a lot of just going with the flow, rolling the dice and taking some risk. But I think that that ended up being a really beautiful thing for our family. So those are the ways that you get to see the fireflies. And I'll kind of walk through what it's like going from the campground to the trails that they're on. But that's why we were going. That's why we were there. And that's why we were camping. Here's what I also learned. And I remembered it once I was there. I remembered my friend who had been last year telling me this. There were a ton of empty campsites. So there were lots of people
Who
who
booked and just
reserved the
didn't show up?
campsite. No, they showed up. They reserved the campsite, but they still stayed somewhere else so that they could just get in to see the fireflies.
That is wild.
Because the campsite doesn't cost too much money,
Sure.
depending on where you're going. But in Smoky Mountain National Park, I think it was like $30 a night.
And when the only other option is the lottery, that I mean, kinda genius.
It is kind of genius.
It kind of stinks for
It
people
stinks
who,
for
like,
people who want to camp,
wanna camp, but, like, listen, I don't hate the game, okay?
right?
I respect it.
I said I would probably do that. Because it'd be nice to have that sort of campsite as like a home base. You could go sit and eat your sandwiches or
Sure,
whatever,
but you don't have to sleep there.
but not sleep there.
Yeah.
And again, it's not because like we love camping. We like sleeping in a tent. But this was a lot
Yeah.
because there's so much to do in the national park that should have been the whole sole focus. So if I could go back and do it again, I would either simplify our food for bear country or I would say we're just going to have this campsite and we're going to stay somewhere
Yeah.
else and come in every day to do the park. Because the thing about the fireflies, especially when you're talking about doing it with your younger kids, is it's late at night.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what time.
Yeah. So do you want me to tell you our firefly
Yeah, tell me.
experience
Yeah,
stories?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So the first night was Friday and we we wrapped up our dinner, our hot dogs, and we cleaned everything up and locked it all in the truck. And we started walking from our campsite at about 7:30.
Okay.
And our campsite was all the way at the other end of the campground from where the trailheads are. So we had probably a mile walk through the campground. So if you go this camping route, definitely be paying attention to where your campsite is in relationship to where the trailheads are. So,
Could you have driven or it has to be walked?
well, we didn't know if we could drive. So it's outside the Firefly Festival. If you're there during the Firefly Festival, you cannot drive.
Dang, okay.
But if you are there outside the Firefly Festival, it's a free for all. So they're still there and letting you come see the fireflies, but the parking lots are open until they're full and then they close them. So we didn't know what to expect with the parking lots that were right by the trailheads and were there parked in the campsite. So first night we just walked and we talked to the campground host and he kind of gave us some tips and ideas. And so we felt like we had a good plan. And he gave us like, the nice thing is that there's resources there. So he told us what time he thought we should be there. He thought 8:30 was going to be prime time that night. If you are camping in Elkmont, what you want to think about is there's a trailhead by the N as in the number 9, the N loop.
Okay.
And then there's also a trailhead closer to where the campground check-in house is.
Sure.
The place that you would start your camping there. So we walked all the way down through the campground and through the N loop, and then there's a trail that goes up over to a trailhead called Jake's Creek Trail. So that's where we went the first night. It's a little bit uphill, but it was a short hike. It was about, I think, once we were out of the campground, we probably hiked about 3/4 of a mile. And most people were hauling in their chairs and stuff, and we were looking around like, oh my gosh, should we have done that? I just didn't think about we're gonna be sitting here for a long time. But we found a spot where this trail had been paved, but it's
Mhm.
kinda crumbling.
Mhm.
So we found a spot where the asphalt was, like, crumbling off the edges, and it made a little ledge,
Yeah.
and we sat there on the right on the trail, looking out into the forest, and around I would say around 8:20, we started seeing fireflies come out.
Okay.
We got real excited. "Oh my gosh, it's happening." But
I'm starting to get nervous for you.
you can tell
I can tell I'm starting to get very
because
nervous.
Kayla hears me tell stories all the time. She probably knows, like, my storytelling buildup.
I'm like, oh gosh, something's
Something's
about
gonna
to happen."
happen. So the fireflies started coming out probably around 8:20, but probably around 8:10, we started hearing thunder
No.
and seeing some flashes. And my son, here's a great thing. 'Cause so much of parenting, you're saying things, you're planting seeds, you don't know if you'll ever see if they're grown. If you're really being listened to, it feels a lot of the time like you're not. My son goes, "Mommy, I can hear thunder. We need to go inside." I was like, "Yes." Something I've said has stuck because he usually wants to go run around the yard when it's storm.
Oh, no.
And I said, we're okay because we're under a bunch of trees. Gave some explanation about how lightning works. Again, another opportunity for this homeschooling moment on a Friday night in the middle of the woods. So the fireflies just are kind of getting started, and I think I might be starting to see some synchronicity. I'm starting to be intrigued, and the sky just opens up and dumps on us.
Oh my gosh.
Just the torrential
Oh my gosh.
southern thunderstorm rain.
And we've been having the weirdest weather.
We have. We've had a very wet
Like,
May, late mid-May,
stormy.
stormy. With these kinds of storms are usually in April.
And not with this
Intensity.
intensity and, like, what is the word I'm looking for? Like, there's so many of them. We're not used to having so
The
many
frequency.
frequency, that's the word.
Yes.
Not with this frequency. I
Yes.
mean, we had to shelter in place 2 nights in the
We
same week.
we had 4 tornadoes come through our county in May of
Yeah.
2025, and that's more tornadoes that have come through our county in the entire time we've lived
I was about to
here.
say, we have never heard the sirens in the entire time we've lived here, and we heard them twice
Yeah. We had 2 nights that both had 2 tornadoes in our
in the
county.
same week. It was wild.
In the same week, yes.
So, you're there during an already, like, crazy weather time,
Yes. Just sort of unexpected storms at this time of year.
and you have to be thinking, like, "Well, like, there's no shelter for us to get under, so, like, we're just gonna sit here and get rained on."
Well, with our son, he's 5, and he didn't wanna do it. And my husband had brought his rain gear that night, but my son and I had not. We had umbrellas, but we weren't in our rain gear. And so we just called it. We got up, we hiked back to the
Oh
campsite, the
gosh.
probably mile and a half, maybe a little more. But you know what? We had so much fun
Good.
walking in the rain. And I said to my son, as he was like, "We didn't get to see the fireflies do their thing and it's pouring on us." I said, "We will never forget this.
Right.
We will never forget the night we tried to see fireflies and we walked through a thunderstorm back to our tent." And for me, as much as I was there to see the fireflies, I love making those kinds of memories in nature. One of the things I
Right.
love about nature is that you can't control it, you can't predict it, and some of the best things come out of that.
When you never get the same experience twice,
Right.
it's always gonna be a unique to that moment in time
Yes.
experience.
So I just said to him, like, this is what we're here for. I know we talked about coming here for the fireflies, but what we came here for was to have an encounter with nature
Right.
and to see the wonder and majesty that is God's creation. And that includes your plans being changed, and that includes getting a little wet, and that's okay. It's all part of it. So that was night 1. Night 2, we had another chance. Here's an important thing to know about going to Great Smoky Mountains National Park: there's no service in the park. So going into night 2, we didn't have a way to check the forecast.
Right.
So what we actually did, because we didn't want to set ourselves up for another round of that, and it rained, I mean, it rained all night and all the next morning. So everything's wet. It did get sunny on Saturday
Yeah.
afternoon. But so going into night 2, we just wanted to know how to prepare ourselves and
Sure.
set expectations for our kid. So we drove a little bit out to where we could get service and look at the forecast, and it looked like another round of thunderstorms was coming, but earlier in the evening and then going to be done. And so we thought, okay, it's worth it to go back and try again. So for night 2, we actually did drive up and park in the parking lot at the historic district. We got there at 6.
Okay.
And I think the lot was probably full by 7. But again, this is outside of the Firefly Festival, so it's just free for all.
Right.
The cool thing, though, is there's a little historic district there of people who lived in the city that had built cabins, and these cabins are really cool, and they're all open and you can explore. So we got there at 6, we made sandwiches in the back of the truck, and then the lightning and the thunder starts again
Oh
and
my
torrential downpour. So we
gosh.
hop in the truck, we eat our sandwiches inside the truck.
Well, at least you had the truck there this
We
time,
had the
so you
truck
could stay dry.
and we had all of our rain gear this time.
Yeah.
So we were all, ready to go in rain jackets, rain boots, the whole thing. And we ate our sandwiches in the truck. And again, I think it was like a fun thing
Yeah.
that we don't do that
Yeah.
normally. And we ended up having a lot of fun in that truck together and made some really cool core memories.
Yeah.
Just hanging out as a family, trapped in a thunderstorm, eating sandwiches. Around 7, the rain let up. It was still raining the way that it does at the end of a thunderstorm, but it
Yeah.
wasn't torrential. And so we went and explored the cabins. We had a chance to talk to a lot of people. And there were people telling us that the night before they had sat through the rainstorm and around 11 p.m., the fireflies had come out.
Oh
So
my
the rangers
gosh.
there were saying this rain is supposed to be over by 8:30-ish. We think that the fireflies are going to come out at 9:30 tonight. So we were like, okay, we're here. We're going to get to see it. And I talked to enough people throughout the day that we were in the campground and then there at the historic district that night who really thought the other trail was the better trail for that night.
Okay.
It's called Little River Trail.
Yep.
That people there the night previously had seen more than the people on the trail we'd been on, which was Jake's Creek. So I think a lesson I learned is you really got to be talking to people.
Sure.
Everyone's there for the same reason.
Right.
So don't be shy. Ask people, did you come last night? What did you see? Where were you? Can I walk with you?
Right.
We got on the Little River Trail and someone had told us to go to Spence Cabin, but there were no signs. So we didn't know where it was. And we ended up connecting with a couple who they had been there, I think they said for the last 5 or 6 years. And they sort of were like, come with us. We'll find a good spot. We'll get you set up. So just don't be afraid to talk to people. Everyone's there. And someone there has probably experienced it before, but everyone's there for the same phenomenon and like wants you to have a good experience and you want them to have a good experience. So ask people where they had success and talk to the rangers and get as much information as you can. And you will get some conflicting information for sure. So you kind of got to see where am I getting the
Right.
most of the same kind of advice. So we went on Little River Trail. We got out there probably about 8:15. We were right by there's a lot of on both of these trails, there's a lot of old homesteads that all is left is the chimney, kind of like what you
Okay.
see throughout the southeast. And so we went and did some exploring of those and just again like some quality family time in the woods as it's getting darker. And sure enough, right around 9:30 is when it
Wow.
got dark enough. The fireflies started coming out again earlier than that, probably more like at 9. We started seeing fireflies, but the synchronicity started at about 9:30. We watched for about 45 minutes. That was about
Yeah.
all my son could take. He was
Yeah.
so tired because the night before we went up late, he'd had a hard time going to sleep in the tent that night, and he'd
Yeah.
woken up early in the morning.
Ooh.
So he just was tired by the time we were actually seeing it. And I
Yeah.
think for him at 5 years old, he saw it and
It just didn't have the wow factor for him like it did for you because you also had a lot of buildup. You've been wanting to see this for a while, and we have the years on us to, like, know what fireflies normally look like, and so how cool is this? Like, I've never seen fireflies like this before. He's not gonna have that experience in his life because he's 5
right.
seeing these, so he's gonna be
Yes.
like, "Oh, yeah," like
Yeah. He probably 5 minutes of watching them, he was like, "I get it. Cool." I mean, he thought it was really neat. He
Sure.
thought it was wonderful, but he didn't I could have sat there and watched them
All night.
until they stopped,
Yeah.
whatever time that was. He checked the box
Yeah.
and he was tired and ready to go. And we
Yeah.
were a little wet, because it had been just everything was wet.
Sure.
So, but he hung in there for about 45 minutes with us and we watched. And I do think we were watching the beginning of the night. I think it probably did pick up after we left
Yeah.
even more cuz nobody else was leaving when we were. Everyone was staying longer. So I think it is the kind of thing where you maybe sit for hours and watch it. And my husband and I had a moment So my son said, I want to come back and watch this again when I'm older. For I don't know why, but he picked when I'm 17, we'll come back
That's
and watch
oddly
this.
specific.
It was oddly specific, and I said, "Sure, that sounds great." And my husband turned to me and he said, "Or when he's 17, he stays home and we come and just have a romantic."
Yes.
And that was fun. I was so sweet to be able to, like, put that as something we wanna do
Yeah.
again, just us as a couple.
One, I was thinking about it because we recently, well, last summer, we went to Europe to meet my husband for his like R&R for his deployment. And one of the things we debriefed about was that like, hey, this it had to happen because this is the best way we could see each other. But ideally, like maybe don't go to a foreign country for the first time with your children. Maybe like scope it out beforehand. I don't know. Maybe there are those people out there that would totally like thrive there. I personally did not. The first leg of our trip was so traumatic that I can't even look back at pictures. But as you're talking about this, I'm sitting here thinking like, I would like to see that. I do think my kids would like to see that. However, I think my husband and I should go first and
Yeah,
experience it because then we can tailor our day, like knowing, okay, we're going to see them at 9 o'clock and we're going to want to stay until 11. We could tailor our day around making sure our kids had some good rest time
yeah,
so that they could stay up late. And also, I would wanna walk these trails
in the
because
daylight.
we would probably be the people that reserved the campsite and slept somewhere else unless we had our RV with us, which
Yeah,
we could do no hookups, like, we could make that work. But, like, I would wanna know logistically getting from because I don't like being in new situations where I have to navigate the unknown in a situation like that with my children. I have so much less anxiety if I'm navigating it by myself or with my husband, but, like, when the kids are involved, then you have this added layer of, like not that I don't value mine or my husband's life, but, you just extra wanna protect your kids, and, I know I can get myself out of a situation, but navigating it with kids who may not understand, like, the severity of it if there's a storm or an animal or whatever. So I think that I would wanna do that just me and him.
and it would be so romantic.
Yeah.
I mean, I was watching these couples just sitting and snuggling together and
So
talking and
cute.
watching. It was yeah, and but I love that now my husband and I have this and yes, it's potentially 15 years in the future, but this thing to look forward to.
Yeah.
Like, it was just a really romantic thing for him to even say. Like, it just was we had a really sweet time watching the fireflies. I'm so glad I saw it. I'm still just my mind is still just blown
Yeah.
that they do this and that it's so rare. So that I mean, that's part of what makes it so special. So it was magical. I recommend it. It's definitely one of those trips that you have to be a lot of flexibility, a
Yeah.
lot of just go with the flow. But the other thing we ended up doing that I have to talk about because it was not on our plan. My plan was we're just going to go to Elkmont Campground and we're not going to leave. Great Smoky Mountains National Park is huge. I'm not gonna try to experience everything there. We're there for the fireflies. We're just gonna focus on that. But the rain made everything wet in our
Right.
campsite and just made us have to change our plan a little bit.
Sure.
And also on Friday morning, we went to, or Friday afternoon when we arrived, we went to Sugarland's visitor center and just checked in with them a little bit, got the information. They have a really cool little newspaper that tells you about what's going on that month in the park, helps you know if there's any programs and things to know about. And we chatted for a little while with one of the rangers there, and my son had so many questions about bears. So my wish was to see the fireflies.
He
His
wanted
wish
to see a bear?
was to see a bear. And my friend who had camped in Elkmont the year before, a bear had gone through their campground.
Hard pass.
So his wish was to see a bear, and my wish was for his wish to come true, but from far away.
Right. Correct.
So I didn't want a bear to come through the campground. And he was asking so many questions about bears on Friday when we first got there at the visitor center. She said, "You really should go down to Kate's Cove tomorrow,
Okay.
especially because it's probably going to be rainy."
Yeah.
So when we woke up on Saturday morning, it just was raining, raining, raining. We pivoted and decided to drive down to Kate's Cove, which is an area of Great Smoky Mountains National Park that is in a valley. So you have the mountains all around you, which is beautiful, and all these meadows. And it's another really popular part of the park, probably actually way more popular
How
than
far was it from where y'all were staying?
it should be about a 45-minute drive.
Oh.
And it's not far. It's just miles, like 20 miles or something. But it's because you're on these windy small roads right
Right.
along the river is beautiful. Some of the most and there's waterfalls all along. It was some of the most beautiful driving I've done. And I'll mention, and I'm sure we'll get into this in another episode, but I grew up right outside of a national park. I grew up outside of Redwood National Park. Spent a lot of time in that national park. And that's an epic place. So for me to be like in awe of the natural beauty of this drive,
Yeah.
I mean, that does speak volumes. It was just that drive would have been worth it.
Yeah.
But the reason it takes so long is you get on a loop once you get to Cades Cove, and it's a one-lane drive that loops you through all this scenic area where most of the wildlife viewing happens.
Okay.
And when people see wildlife,
No.
they lose their minds.
And they stop their
They
cars.
stop their
No.
cars, they'll park in the middle of the road. I mean, so it probably took us an hour and 10 minutes to get from the campground.
The way I would get so anxious about, like, "How do I get out of here?"
Oh, yeah, there's no way out. And that was just down to the visitor center at Cades Cove, which is
Okay.
at the end of or at the, like, tip of the loop. So you've only done half the loop when you get down there.
So, this, like, experience at this place is from your car? Or are there places where, like, you get out and go in somewhere?
There's all kinds of places to park along this loop. There's little parking lots,
Okay.
and there's trails throughout, and there's old historic homes because this valley was a great place for people to build homes,
Sh
150 years ago, and to farm and stuff because the meadows there were, I mean, it's just bountiful. And so there's old homes and old churches. There's all kinds of things to explore. We didn't get out and do any of that because we were there for the bears. But then when you get down to the visitor center, you can get out there. There's a visitor center. There's programs that happen there.
Okay.
And then there's also pullouts along. So if you see something that you want to pull over and look at. So we're pretty early on in our drive through the loop, and I saw a cluster of cars pulled over on the side of the road and people with their giant, I mean, there's so many people there with their giant cameras with the like long extension
Mhm.
lenses to take the nature photography. So I said to my husband, I think something's going on up there. If you can pull over, pull over. Sure enough, there was a bear. And there's a fence. I mean, it's not like a Jurassic Park fence.
Sure. Like, the bear could probably figure it out.
For sure. It's wood and some barbed wire.
Sure.
But the bear was pretty far away. So I got my son out. He got to see his bear. And similar to the fireflies, once he had checked that box, he
He was
didn't
like,
feel like he needed to
"I'm
keep checking
done."
it.
Yeah.
So he saw the bear. He was thrilled. He was so happy. We had a moment where we thanked God that we got to see the bears that he had asked to see. And what I didn't realize until the very end, I put him back in the truck and then I stood there for just another minute and took some video. And I didn't realize until I was standing there taking a video. It was a mama bear and her cub. The cub just like poked up out because the meadow
Oh.
grasses are so tall.
Sure.
So you're really just seeing the tops of them.
Yeah.
You have to know you're looking at a bear. It's not like there's a bear in its full form.
Right.
And so that was really cool. I got back in the truck and kept going. And now I knew to be watching
Right.
anytime there's a cluster of people. We didn't stop again, but between there and the visitor center, there was another bear in a meadow. My husband and I both saw it. My son didn't want to
He
try to
was
stay out of
done.
the car. He was done. We parked at the visitor center. We made our sandwiches again with your wonderful bread. Made it so easy. Beautiful, like, you're just surrounded by the Smoky Mountains, and
Yeah.
they're just gorgeous. It's just mind-blowing how beautiful it is, and so we just sat there eating in awe and wonder, and then I watched. Something is happening over in this meadow across from the parking lot. I see on the road, there's some cars and trucks stopping, and then I see there's some people coming up from behind the visitor center to go watch. So I'm like, "Come on, come on, come on." I get my son, we run up this little hill and stand under a tree where there's a couple park rangers and a cluster of people, and at the edge of the meadow, there's a mama bear and her 2 cubs,
Oh my goodness.
and it was so cool. My son couldn't see them because again, like,
Sure.
it's just hard. They're just lumps,
Right.
and I heard someone say as we were standing there, "It's not about getting the perfect picture or it's
It's
that
about the
you
experience.
know what you're watching,
Right.
and it's not about what you're gonna share later. It's just you know what you're watching. It's not gonna show up really well on Instagram,
Right.
but you're seeing it and you know how cool it is." And then someone's car alarm started going off, but it actually ended up making for a cool thing because they got up and they went into the woods, so we
Yeah.
got to watch them walking, and
That's so
she,
cool.
like, nudged her cubs along first
Oh.
and then turned around and kinda like, "What's going on back there?" And then she sauntered off into the woods. We got back on the rest of the loop. That was actually a slower go because there were more bears and people were acting even nuttier than they had been on the drive in. So from the truck again, I saw 3 more bears in the meadows. Again, my son didn't care. But we were going so slow, we were, like, looking at things on trees and taking pictures of them
Yeah.
so that we could come back and, like, nature journal about them or find out what they were. Because again, no service,
Right.
and my wildlife guides didn't cover all of the area, so a lot of it, we were like, "We don't know what that is, but it's really
Yeah.
cool." So we had a really good time on that drive, and we got back, and we were able to swim in the river that runs through the campground for a little bit and do some fishing. It was all in all lots of unpredictable things, lots
Yeah.
of pivoting,
Yeah.
lots of resetting expectations, or just saying this thing we thought we were gonna get to experience this weekend or do this weekend, it's not gonna happen, or it's
Yeah.
not gonna happen the way we thought. But it was really good for our family. It was really
Yeah.
good for us to just be in nature together, be taking in what the creator has made, but also learning how resilient we are as a family.
Yeah.
It was special, and just seeing so many little seeds I've planted, because I nature is just such a big part of my heart and part of our homeschooling, that it was wonderful to get to see the fruits starting to come up in my son.
Yeah.
I think that so many homeschooling families enjoy nature because it's an opportunity for such interdisciplinary learning.
Sure.
You get to learn a little bit of science, and you get to learn a little bit of, like, real life skills,
Yeah.
but you also learn these life lessons that you can't learn somewhere else.
Well, and experiencing it is going to help them retain the information because they don't just know this piece of knowledge, but they know how it applies in their real life.
Yes.
And I think that's so important. I mean, I had an algebra teacher in high school. She was teaching something which I don't remember. And I said, "Can you give me an example of where I would use this in real life?" And her literal response to me was on the test. Fun fact, she ended up being on the board of my HOA when we moved into a neighborhood after we had our daughter. And she remembered me. So just, fun times there. But, you know, and I clearly didn't retain that.
Right.
I clearly don't use it anywhere.
And on the test is not real life. On the test is still within this
Right.
designed environment that is not real life.
And I think too, one of the you talking about the flexibility of this trip, you have that flexibility because you're not bound by your kid's school schedule.
Right.
You have your husband's work schedule to think about, but as long as that can be kind of flexible, then it's okay. And like, you think about it at your age, you are getting to experience this for the first time.
Mm.
He's 5, getting to experience this for the first time. And this sets the bar for like, this is not that it's going to diminish the wonder of these things, but expect wonder.
Expecting wonder.
Expect to experience wonder. You can expect to experience wonder in your family
Yes.
because you make it a priority to go and do these things. And from what you said, $30 a night, that is an extremely inexpensive, granted, if you end up also staying somewhere else, it
Right.
could add up. But we're not talking about booking flights or eating out at fancy restaurants. Like, it's a very inexpensive experience for your family to have, but one that's unique to the Southeast. You're not
Yes.
gonna find it anywhere else.
No.
And, just really cool.
Yeah. This is his second national park, which we'll have an episode on our experience at Mammoth Cave National Park. Also really cool and also very accessible from the Southeast. And I think he's starting to realize important and accessible nature really is.
Yeah.
I think we can so often overcomplicate it and think, oh, it's hard to go have these nature experiences. But when you go somewhere like a national or a state park, they're really cultivating it for you. And it's not like Disney hospitality because they're trying to preserve something there, but they all are there for you to be able to have these encounters with nature and cultivate that wonder in your family if that's important to you. And for us, the reason that we focus so heavily on nature is because it is a way to know
Sure.
God. It
Yeah.
is a way to know our creator. I'm not going to get the quote perfect, but C.S. Lewis said that until he encountered nature, he didn't have a way to understand, put meaning behind the word glory
Right.
of God. And so that's for us, that's why we spend so much time in nature. And I think my son this weekend, he really got a sense of how detail oriented.
Yeah.
And he said to me at one point, "Wow, it's like God's an artist." And
That's
I
so sweet.
said, "Yeah, he is." And I think it's really important for kids to see that part of God's character.
Sure.
And I don't know how they do it if they don't experience nature. And I'm not saying you have to go to a national park for that.
Right.
You can do that in your yard, your
Right.
city park, whatever.
Or if you don't have that, if you can't get out and see these places, like, YouTube is a
Oh,
wonderful.
yes.
I mean, my daughter went on this weird kick where she was, like, obsessed with tsunamis and wanting to know the logistics behind a tsunami and how does one know a tsunami's coming, and so we were able to, like, watch documentary footage, because we don't
Yes.
I don't ever wanna be that close to a tsunami,
I have
but we
been.
yeah, but
Story for another day.
we've lived here in Georgia, literally, my ancestors came over in the 1700s, and they were like, "Yep, this looks good, we're sticking around." So, I mean, we don't have a way for her to ever experience that. So, I know there are people in cities and people who don't have yards and stuff like that, but there's,
You
if
can
you
find
I
it.
mean, obviously, like, experiencing it in person is ideal, good, better, best, that's best, right?
Yes.
But there are so many ways to access that.
Yes. I'm trying to find the name of the institute in Great Smoky Mountains because one of the things that they have on their website, I'll find it. Here we go. Tremont, Great Smoky Mountains Institute at Tremont. So I went to their website after we got home. I didn't know about this. We drove by a sign. And I went to their website when we got home and they have little 8-minute videos
Oh, fun.
uploaded to YouTube that are things that happened in the park and they're free to access and it's in their educator resources. So that's a way to access nature.
And we'll link that in the show notes so that you
Yes.
can have access to that if that's something you wanna check out.
And a lot of national parks, a lot of state parks will do these kinds of things. There's if you're trying to figure out how to access nature, go to even a nonprofit
Yeah.
nature center or one that specifies in a specific species or they have a specific cause. A lot of them have YouTube channels
Yeah.
with short little videos that will help teach your kids about nature and prime them for when they go and experience nature. Again, even if it's not going to the national park, it's
Sure.
going to the city park, it still primes them for being able to be open to and receptive of what there is.
That's
So
awesome.
we will share some photos from our
Yeah.
experience. I unfortunately don't have any videos of the fireflies because once they started, I was
In the
so
moment.
awestruck. I just put my
Yeah.
phone away.
Kat, it sounds like y'all had the best time. So, would you share with us a homeschooling win from your trip?
Sure. It's interesting because when I think about sharing homeschooling wins, so often I want to share something that feels really academic. But I think that being out in this really rustic environment in the Smoky Mountains, in the national park, and having so many new opportunities. We were seeing wildlife we'd never seen. We were camping in ways that we haven't camped together as a family. And just seeing my son's ability to adapt and be resilient and stand in complete wonder of the things that he was seeing and experiencing. And I think that's part of the beauty of homeschooling is we're not just trying to get the 2 plus 2 equals 4 to click or the reading to click. And those are huge and important things, but also being able to say, my kid is adaptable. My
Yeah.
kid is able to go with the flow. My kid is able to express his joy and his wonder in the things that he's learning, whether that would be ever found in a textbook or not, but that he
Yeah.
is learning it. And it was cool because he interacted with a lot of adults while we were there. He interacted with park rangers and campsite hosts and other campers, other people there to witness the firefly event, and he was able to just share things he knows about the world, about nature, about creation, about animals in a way that was really authentic, and that was really special to see. It lifted my heart up and made me feel a little bit like, "Okay, I'm doing some things right."
Yeah, you're doing lots of things right. That's awesome.
Thank you. You can see my reel that I posted way back when we had the experience on my Instagram at Recreating Camp. And Kayla, where can they find you?
I'm at Scratch Made Simple on all the platforms.
And you know that you can find us at Homeschooling Down South. If you've had a cool nature adventure somewhere in the Southeast that you think we should go check out and experience ourselves, I have a bucket list, but I'm always adding to it. You can email us at hello@homeschoolingdownsouth.com.
We'll see y'all next week. If you enjoyed this episode, we would be so grateful if you would leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you're listening to this podcast. It really helps us get the word out and make sure all of our homeschool families know what's going on here in the Southeast.